Dear students, we have been discussing the play Macbeth. Let us discuss what had been taught in the previous class. If you remember, Macbeth had again visited the heath to find out the witches because he wanted to know about his outcome. He wanted to know what future had in store for him. So he was very much afraid about the fact that Banquo's son Fleance had fled. The witches had predicted that though Banquo would not be king, his descendants would become kings. Banquo রাজা হবেন না কিন্তু তার বংশধরের রাজা হবে. This was the prediction of the witches. So Macbeth had planned the murder of Banquo and Fleance. Banquo was killed, but Fleance escaped. So Macbeth's plan had not been fulfilled completely. So Macbeth wanted to know about his future and he visited the heath again. When he visited the heath, he found that the witches were preparing some charms to summon the spirits from hell. নরক থেকে আত্মাকে নিয়ে আসার জন্য তারা কিছু প্রস্তুতি চালাচ্ছে. They use some strange ingredients to make the charm. Now, 3 spirits were summoned. The first spirit warned Macbeth about Macduff, the Thane of Fife. And if you remember, it was Macduff who was a close follower of King Duncan. He was a loyal follower of King Duncan. Macbeth was jealous of Macduff, and when the first spirit warned him about Macduff, Macbeth thanked him. The second spirit predicted that no man born of a woman would be able to kill Macbeth. নারী গর্ভে জন্ম এমন কোনো মানুষ ম্যাকবেথকে মারতে পারবে না. Now all men are born of women. So Macbeth thought that he was virtually immortal. সে প্রায় অমর. Because all men are born of women and no one can kill him. And what did the third spirit predict? The third spirit predicted that until and unless the Burnham Woods came upon the Dunstan Hill, Macbeth could not be defeated. যতদিন না বার্নামের অরণ্য উঠে আসছে ডানসিনেন পাহাড়ের ওপর, ম্যাকবেথকে হারানো যাবে না. Now how can a forest climb a hill? So Macbeth thought that he cannot be defeated. Later we will find that all these predictions were hollow. এগুলো সবই শূন্য গর্ভ. Actually, these gave Macbeth some false hope because it came from sinister forces. অশুভ শক্তির এই ভবিষ্যৎবাণী ম্যাকবেথকে কিছু ভুল আশা দেখিয়েছিল. But at that moment, Macbeth did not understand it. Rather, Macbeth was elated. Macbeth was happy that no one can kill him, no one can defeat him. But Macbeth had not forgotten the question he had come to ask the witches. What was the question? Whether Banquo's descendants could be kings of Scotland after him. So Macbeth now asked this question. If Banquo's descendants would become kings after his death. Now let us find out the answer given by the spirits. So open your books at page number 48 and look at your books. We are starting at that page 48. Here the cauldron sank into the ground. If you remember, a cauldron means a big container where water is boiled. In this case, the witches were preparing their charms in the cauldron. This cauldron sank into the ground. To sink means to enter. Here, it entered the ground, and a noise of music was heard, and 8 shadows like kings passed by Macbeth. The cauldron entered the ground, and 8 shadows like kings, king-like shadows, Rajar moto dekhte 8ta chhaya, passed by Macbeth, and Banquo was the last figure. 8 figures looking like kings passed by Macbeth, and the last figure was Banquo, all smeared with blood, and smiled at Macbeth. Banquo's shadow was covered with blood because he had been murdered, and the shadow of Banquo smiled at Macbeth. It was a contemptuous smile, একটা অবজ্ঞাপূর্ণ হাসি. Banquo bore a glass. Bore is the past form of bear. To bear means to carry. Banquo carried a glass which showed the figure. Here it is written figured. Actually, the word is figure, which showed the figure of many more. Banquo had a glass in his hand. He carried a glass, and inside the glass were reflected many other images. 8 shadows, 8 images had passed, and inside the glass held by Banquo many other images were reflected. তার হাতে ধরা গিলাসের মধ্যে আরো অনেক ছবি প্রতিফলিত হচ্ছে, and Banquo pointed to the images. Macbeth realized that these were the posterity of Banquo. Posterity means the next generation. That means the descendants, বংশধর. Actually, Banquo was showing Macbeth his descendants, and they should reign after him in Scotland. And the message was clear. After Macbeth's death, the descendants of Banquo would become kings of Scotland. Macbeth's মৃত্যুর পর Banquoর বংশধররাই রাজা হবে. The spirits did not answer in a direct manner. Rather, they gave the answer in a symbolic manner. একটা প্রতীকী ব্যাপার দিয়ে তারা ব্যাপারটাকে বুঝিয়ে দিল. That they showed that 8 shadows passed by Macbeth. They looked like kings. The last one was Banquo. That means they were the descendants of Banquo. And the glass held in Banquo's hand reflected many other shadows, many other images. They were all the next generation of Banquo. The message was loud and clear. After Macbeth, Banquo's descendants would become the king of Scotland. The 3 witches danced with the sound of soft music, and making a show of duty and welcome to Macbeth vanished in the air. After completing their task, after predicting about Macbeth's future, the witches vanished. The first news that Macbeth got soon after coming out of the witches' cave was that Macduff, the Thane of Fife, had fled to England. Macbeth returned from the cave. He returned to his kingdom. What was the first news received by Macbeth? The first news received by Macbeth was that Macduff, the Thane of Fife, had fled to England. Fled. It is the past participle of flee. To flee means to run away, to escape, পালিয়ে যাওয়া. Macduff had fled to England. If you remember, Duncan had 2 sons, Malcolm and Dunalbain. Malcolm had taken shelter in England. That means Macduff fled to England to join the army which was formed against him under the leadership of Malcolm. Malcolm was not sitting idle in England. Rather, he was setting up an army. And Macduff fled Scotland to join this army, and this army had been set up to displace Macbeth and set Malcolm, the right heir, upon the throne of Scotland. And this army had been set up to dethrone Macbeth. Dethrone, মানে to remove from the throne, সিংহাসনচ্যুত করা. This army would dethrone Macbeth and place Malcolm on the throne, because Malcolm was the right heir. Heir means inheritor. সেই প্রকৃত উত্তরাধিকারী, because he is the son of Duncan. This video comes to an end. I will upload another one.